Welcome to the Contagious Victories podcast. Each week, we talk inspiration, explore possibilities, and share insights from creative perspectives. I'm Tori Blackman, and I'm here to remind you that your purpose in life is to celebrate the victories, because victories are contagious. They say history repeats itself, but Dan Heiser is making sure we remember it in a whole new way. You know, it's tragic how easily most of us forget important past events and world-changing figures who have shaped our lives. But for historian and published author Dan Heiser, the past is anything but forgotten. That's because through his immersive 1940s historical fiction, Heiser is bringing the stories of the past to life, reminding us of the struggles, triumphs, and lessons of those who came before us. But his work doesn't stop there. He's also been juggling life as an academic advisor and a full-time student. That's right. He's currently pursuing his PhD in history. He's expected to wrap that up and be completely finished in May of next year. Dan is a believer and truly goes with God's plan, no matter what door the Lord opens for his life. So remember him when you say your prayers tonight, because being a full-time PhD student and an academic advisor and a published author who is currently writing another book, Dan needs some prayer. In this episode of the Contagious Victories podcast, Dan and I talk about his passion for writing and how he finds inspiration with other readers and writers, both online and in real life. Are you ready to dive into the mind of Dan Heiser? This episode is for anyone interested in gaining insight about writing and publishing a book, plus the importance of remembering and learning from our past. Before we jump into the conversation with Dan, I want to give a quick shout out to Abby and Caleb from Captured Photography. They are a wife and hubby team of photographers from Ohio who found the show on Instagram, gave it a follow, and reached out to let me know how much they're enjoying these guest episodes. So thank you so much, Abby and Caleb. We really appreciate it over here at Contagious Victories, and we are interested in hearing your victory story too. So be on the lookout for a conversation between me and Captured Photo very soon. And if you want me to shout out you or your business on the Contagious Victories podcast, just follow the show on Instagram. DM me your name and business and tell me what you like about the show. If you're someone who wants to just be an audience member, that's okay too. But we would love to get to know you more over in the Contagious Victories Facebook group, where you can share information about yourself, your business, or any victories that are happening in your life right now. So without further ado, let's step back in time and learn how Dan Heiser creatively brings fiction to life. Welcome back to another episode of Contagious Victories. I have a very special guest here today in person, in the flesh. Today we're talking with Dan Heiser, who is a historian and author and a whole lot of other things. A very interesting creative.
Too many things,
which is what I love about you, Dan. And we are friends in real life. Like, we knew each other
a while.
Yes, for a couple years now.
5 years? No, 5 years now.
Yeah, 2019.
Wow.
And so we've been through a lot together, and I'm excited to have you on the show.
And I'm glad to be here.
Welcome.
This is exciting.
Well, all of our lovely listeners who don't know you, can you give a little bit of a firsthand description about yourself?
Yeah. So briefly, ventured into a lot of things, traveled a lot, been a little spoiled because of it. But I'd say after coming home from Ireland, after I took a gap year from college, went into my undergrad of game design, then changed to my master's in history. And now I'm pursuing my PhD in history, and I'll be graduating next year after my dissertation is completed. And then everything between that has been cosplay to 30,000 followers on TikTok. And then I eventually quit that and left. Hello, Winston.
Dog owner. Welcome,
Very
Winston.
big dog owner. Publishing 4 books, and then took a while off of that. And now I'm finally getting back into it.
So you're getting back into writing. I know you have an Instagram for book lovers that you share
I do.
all of your writing.
It's
and
more so book memes at this point,
reads.
but still.
Well, and then a lot of writing stuff too. When you're going through that writing journey, you're telling little stories using reels and things to promote your writing. So you've got that. And the way we know each other is we worked together both at the TV station a few years back and met a couple days before we hosted our own little show at Pentacon at a little convention.
Emergency hosting. Yes. I was terrified.
And I'll add this. In the meantime, this is February 2020. So the whole time while all this is going on.
A month before everything hit the fan.
I remember seeing some news stories and like, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
China.
This 2020 thing. No. So
what happened? Like a month later, everything went to hell in a handbasket.
Everything, the world was completely different. We pulled through. Our creativeness got us through.
I think our creativeness got us through it.
Yes. Got us through that whole year. Now we're both in different places doing different things, and you have quite a lot of victory stories to be proud about. So
as well you.
Thank you. Well, we're not talking about me today. We're talking about you. And so I want us to take it back to the beginning. Can you tell me the first time that you really realized that you were going to be an author or a writer?
You want the truth?
Yeah.
5 years old.
5 years old. Okay.
I've been writing since I can remember. Remember those like half days at school? So like my dad worked, my mother worked. So I'd go back with her to work.
Okay.
And I'd sit in her little office waiting to go home, making up these stupid children's stories about like farm animals and stuff.
Yeah.
And that never died. That's the one thing that I've done creatively that has never died. Cosplay, I've done, it died. I want to get back into it, but I haven't. Like the only time I really do is when I get into Flynn Rider for Renaissance fairs, and that's it.
I like that character a lot.
Who doesn't?
I know, he's great.
Honestly, he's the best. Like I will say this to the day I die, Tangled is the last good Disney movie ever made.
I love Tangled. That one's my favorite. And it has a special place in my heart.
100%.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you have always enjoyed making up elaborate stories, even from such a really young age. The writing thing has been something that has brought you joy.
Yeah. It's escapism, but it's freedom, and it's able to give back to everybody. It's hey, whatever you're going through, read.
And you're currently in the middle of writing a book right now.
I am.
Well, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I've dabbled a lot in fantasy. One day I want to actually publish one of my fantasy works, but I have that an idea pops up. It can't fit into this, so it creates a new project. But what I really fall back into every time is historical fiction.
Okay.
And so what I'm working on now is it starts right after the war.
Which war?
World War II.
Okay.
An RAF, Royal Air Force, POW, comes home after being a POW for 5 years and ends up basically finding out his wife remarried. He literally just married her like right before the war starts. Yeah, it's bad. He finds out right after because assumed dead. And so basically he divorces his wife, runs to America, meets up with one of his friends he made in the POW camp, falls in love with this guy's sister. And then when he comes back home, he has to choose between becoming the next line in the earldom or her.
And she's in a different country. She's an American. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds really interesting. And you are taking a lot of inspiration from interests that you have.
Yep.
And you're a historian. So talk a little bit about that. I've never had a historian on the show.
Okay. It really started when I was 4 years old.
Okay. So even before the writing, you liked history.
Way before the writing. I saw Titanic in 1997. My parents showed a 4-year-old the VHS, covered the eyes, the inappropriate parts.
I remember my mom did the same thing to me. She was like, "You need to see this movie.
You need to see this movie, but not this part."
Yeah, exactly.
I can still remember that day by day. And so I got obsessed with Titanic. I studied that ship forward and backwards for 20 years.
Well, are any of your books themed around that?
My first one.
Okay.
The one that not many can actually get because it's out of publishing right now because it's a horrible write.
Well, I think the first of anything you learn a lot after when you do the first one. But guess what?
You do.
I was going to say, you can't let the fear of the first one keep you from doing it.
No,
so
you can't.
Now you're on your fourth.
You also learn lessons.
You're on your fifth.
I'm on the fifth.
You're on the fifth.
Yeah.
So you have 4 books.
The first book is These 4 Days. That's the Titanic one. The second one is Where I've Been. The third one is It Begins in Rye, which was supposed to be a 6-book series, but I kind of lost the entire second book.
Oh no. Like physically?
Winston.
Oh no. Winston is his dog. And oh my goodness. He ate your homework?
He did. No, he really did.
Oh man.
So my mother found, like, I asked her for my laptop that had my capstone project on it, and she gave it to me for a brief time because I gave it to her. And I found the book, took it off, and put it on a flash drive.
Yeah.
Winston got bored one day and ate the flash drive.
Oh no. And you must love Winston because he is still here.
He's still alive 2 years later.
You didn't give him away.
But I'm actually kind of glad.
Oh, and there he is. Winston has a lot to say about it, I guess.
I'm actually kind of glad because when I first wrote it, it wasn't believable. Because like I'm the historical fiction author who believes every historical event in the book has to be 100% factual. Like you can't change it, any of that.
Yeah.
So the first draft was completely historically accurate, but just unbelievable. The second draft, which I was really liking, was eaten by Winston.
Oh.
And I'm glad it did because now I can eventually, and this was supposed to be published back in like 2019.
Okay.
We're what? 5 years later?
I see what you're saying about having the historical part of the historical fiction and really being passionate about that because you're a historian. So, we both share a love for theater, but one of the things about theater that I remember learning is that you have to have those real parts be 100% real because your audience is going to know. And then you'd rather it be, a fictional story, but using the real things that happened and have them be correct and interesting and have that audience base love that because it's real stuff that you're talking about. And you can envision the stories just taking place during that time, even if they came from your imagination. Yep. So that's really interesting. And I think that it's very admirable that you are taking it so seriously and making sure that, you haven't put something out there as a second volume
just
of
to get it out.
Just to get it out that you want to wait. And there's been a couple other books that have come out since that one or since the first of that series. And those don't have anything to do with that series. And these are different. Tell us about those.
The one that follows It Begins in Rye, because that was the third published, is Dear Tarquin.
Okay.
It's a short story. It's like 50 pages, can be read in an hour. That one, it's about 50 or so pages long. And the only reason why I wrote it is because I am dead set. And I pray to God the day I get married, whoever that lucky woman is, she will go with what I said because I've dreamed about my kids and I know their names. The firstborn, Tarquin Charles, and I named the book after Tarquin.
Oh,
so
okay.
That's probably why I stuck with it. But it's a short story about basically a dad who writes his son letters. Like every chapter opens up with the letter, so it's first person, and then the rest of the chapter is actually being there. So it's American visualization from, I believe, D-Day to the end of the war.
Oh, wow. And it's from the dad writing to his son.
Yep.
That is so interesting. I like that.
It's gotten mixed reviews.
I could see.
I think it's sitting at a 4.5 on Amazon right now.
Okay.
And it's mostly the reason why is because of the change of POV. Literally the first page is the letter and then the rest of the chapter is the third person point of view of the war. Like some people like it, some people hate it.
I like that.
That's everything.
I need to read it. I think that I would like that. I think that sounds really interesting and very different. Like
it was a different travel down when I actually wrote it myself. So it was like something I never tried and never actually saw in any form of reading material. And I was like, I'm down. I'm going to try it. I don't care if it flops. I'm still going to publish it.
Well, that's a really good attitude to have as a young author, because I feel like we were saying earlier, the first or second, few things that we try, we have to learn from them. And I think that you never really learn if you never try. And so
No.
you have to get that out and get it out of you, whether it's a book, a song, whatever you're writing or creating.
And that's also the beauty of self-publishing.
Yeah. Okay.
You're not restricted to the traditionalists. Like, I want to do traditional and I'm going to try for this one. But the first start is getting an agent. And that's not the easy part.
I was going to say, I know nothing about publishing and writing books other than just, it takes a lot of patience with yourself, a lot of creativity. Yeah. I want you to talk a little bit about self-publishing. We might have someone who is thinking about doing that one day, or writing a book themselves. And do you have any advice to give to someone like that?
It's not hard.
Okay.
It's
really,
it's not. Everybody makes it out to seem like it is. I'm not the type to do crowdfundings. I want to, just to like actually have for the next one, the stability of actually being able to afford the book.
Yeah.
Because the hardest part of self-publishing is you're putting your own money into everything.
Yeah.
You got to pay the cover artists. You got to pay an editor if you get one, which I always recommend. So the horror story of the first book, it comes down to the person I hired as the publisher. He ran through the whole, this is how I actually know how to actually self-publish, because he helped me. The problem was that he told me, edit it yourself. The first draft, edit yourself, of course. Yeah. Read it, make sure it makes sense, make sure it flows, make sure you catch the grammatical errors that you can catch on your own. But you definitely need to hire someone, because they're going to, a fresh pair of eyes is going to see something different that you didn't catch. You can always reject the comments or accept the comments. But having a second pair of eyes is always a must. So that's going to cost money. The cover art's going to cost money. If you decide to buy an ISBN, which is the little barcode number at the end.
Yeah.
That's going to cost money. The price may have gone up now because I haven't done it since 2018, but it was quite a bit for one alone.
Do you have to get a separate one for each?
Every single book.
Oh,
but
wow.
that's why they recommend buying packs of 5 and 10.
Okay.
Because you can eventually just either give it to a friend or put it on your own.
Yeah, I didn't even know that.
The important part is, and Amazon offers free ones, which is even better.
Okay.
The problem with Amazon's free ones, though, is you can't sell it in Books a Million, Barnes and Nobles. It's only on Amazon.
Yeah. Well, as we know, the Amazon didn't start off as a marketplace that sold everything. No. It was just books.
Yeah.
And earlier you mentioned that you have your books on Amazon.
Yep.
So if someone's curious and they want to go and read some of the books that we've been talking about,
the fastest way that I've searched it is if you look up Where I've Been and then Dan Heiser.
Okay.
It'll be the first thing that pops up.
All right.
Where I've Been by itself, not so much.
But if you type in Where I've Been by Dan Heiser, yeah. And we're going to have that all listed in the show notes. So you'll be able to just scroll down and click a link, and we'll have that there so you can check out Dan's work. But we were talking about self-publishing, and do you have any thoughts or challenges that came up when you were in that space for the first time? So, I know you and I, being good friends, you've heard me talk about things like imposter syndrome, or, and you were just sharing that there's always funding that people have. That's kind of like a hurdle, whether, you have it or not, there's always a challenge.
You mentioned imposter syndrome. I only experienced that playing Lord of the Rings tabletop games and all that stuff.
Really? Okay.
When I'm actually leading them, but when it's the writing, I'm no, this is when it went out, I'm oh my God, I'm an author. This is actually I'm no longer a writer, I'm an author.
Okay.
Because the second, in my opinion, and this goes, I think, amongst the whole Bookstagram, book talk industry, all of that stuff, where it's the differentiation between an author and a writer is someone who writes, an author is someone who's actually been published.
Okay. See, I didn't know that. That's good information. So you're a writer when you're working on something and doing it personally, but once you're
published, whether it's news, articles in magazines, stuff like that, whatever, the second your name is published, you're an author.
But that makes a lot of sense. Well, I knew that you'd been published. So I thought of course you're an author.
The funny thing is, I haven't actually said I'm an author in years.
See, like, I know how hard that is, but you are an author. And that's one of the reasons I wanted you on this podcast.
I think it's probably because like it's a vanity thing.
But it's not.
But it's not. But it is.
But I think too, it's just like, sometimes it's hard. I know as an artist, it's hard to call myself an artist. And I'm like, okay, I forgot that I was an artist a few weeks ago. Dylan had my degree framed. And so I just relearned like who I was. And I was like, I don't even need to like shy away from this because I paid good money to get that degree.
You did.
To say that I'm an artist. And you have put in the hours and you've got degrees and multiple. I mean, you're working on your PhD. So you have the time, the lifestyle, you've put in the work to call yourself that. And we all should not shy away from calling ourselves what we are, whether it is a author, an artist, a photographer, whatever you are, wooden spoon maker. I don't know what you do, but like if you do it and you do it a lot with your whole heart,
or an
that's what you are.
Dog. I mean, look at that.
Or a sweet little beagle named Winston. Yes, he's finally settled.
Oh my goodness.
He's
so happy.
I want to get into what you're doing now. So let's talk about your Bookstagram.
Yeah.
Am I saying that right? Bookstagram?
I think it's Bookstagram.
Okay. Building an audience of people who are writers.
Originally, it wasn't supposed to be a writing author aspect.
Okay.
No, my Instagram is, like I said at the beginning, it's memes.
Okay. So book memes and stuff.
It's more so like just comedic audios of like, oh, when your friend reads, I think one of my most popular right now is like when your friend reads your book right after you finish the first draft and they go, are you okay?
I saw that one. I do remember. And you're like, you're good, right? Like, and you're like, no.
It's I mean, internally, no.
Yeah. That's so funny.
But it's stuff like that. It's connecting to like trying to self push myself out there, but at the same time, it's like I'm here for just the fun.
I think that when I'm not a writer or author, but I do. Well, maybe I am, and I didn't know it.
You're a bit of a writer.
Well, okay, but anyways, I was going to say not so much like books and stuff, but I do appreciate your writing journey, and I feel like your Bookstagram is a place where other fellow writers can really receive that relatability.
Yes.
Of like the struggles of writing a book or, what it is like to have these characters exist in your head.
What it makes you fall in love with a character and then they're the secondary character and you have to kill them. And then you're like, God, I don't want to kill this character.
And I think they're fun when I can only imagine just like you said, having a character exist and then for the plot to keep going, you've got to kill them off. And you're the creator doing that. And you're like, oh no, I'm going to
It's easier when you don't fall in love with them.
Yeah, exactly.
But those are the, in my opinion, the ones that fail the most.
Okay. Why's that?
So if you don't love the character enough and you have no problem with it dying, then the reader's not going to care. There's also a lot of authors who just kill the character for drama effect, aka the entire Game of Thrones series. But
see, that would be hard. I feel like
killing off a character for plot reasons makes no sense.
Yeah.
There has to be a reason you're killing the character off, not just to piss off your reader. And I feel like,
or make the drama.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that's a lot of what authors do these days, where it's like, oh, this is the most loved character, I'm writing him out. It's like, why would you do that?
Yeah. You got to have that intentionality behind it of like, what is your intention with it?
There has to be a reason to actually kill them off. Otherwise it's going to flop hard.
That makes sense. I see where you would say that.
Or the book's not going to be picked up again. Or like a lot of my friends thrown across the room.
Oh, I don't know if I've done that to a book. Maybe.
I've thrown plenty of books, not for the reason of getting mad, just because I want to get it away from water.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about your books, what you hope that the characters take away from reading them. Or not characters, I'm sorry, the readers.
Reader? Yeah.
What do you hope that the reader takes away?
Honestly, it's the diving into realism.
Okay.
So first off, hopefully whoever reads it gets interested in actually history, like actually wants to look more into the historical value behind the book. For example, with It Begins in Rye, I'm not going to spoil a scene, but there's a mention of the HMS Royal Oak.
Okay.
And that is a very big impact.
Is that a ship?
It's a ship.
Okay, I thought so.
big impact in the book and big impact in the beginning of World War II. Probably right after the Phony War, when World War II really amps up, right after the Battle of Britain. And so I just really want people to go, okay, this is an interesting tidbit that's in the book. Let's actually look into the real history behind it.
Yeah.
The second thing I hope readers take from it is like just feeling the emotions that it like actually gives. Because it's like, hey, you've read this. What did you feel?
Yeah.
Like, did you actually feel the emotions that like it's trying to give, or did it fall flat?
So I think that when you're writing anything, whether it's a song, a book, a poem, you hope to communicate those feelings that might not be everyday feelings that people feel.
Yeah.
So when you're writing, you know, a lot of people, I mean, there might be a couple, but there's a lot of most of us alive right now have not experienced war to the extreme of what World War II or any other
Knock
little
on
battle.
wood.
Yeah, knock on wood. But, you know, I remember my grandfather who passed away early on in life. He was in World War II. And there was a really special little ceremony we did at school. And there was only, you know, like probably a couple handfuls of grandparents who were left. And I read about it or see it in the news a lot. There's not a whole lot of people left like that. So those stories are only getting passed down in that way from people like you who have done the research to understand what exactly, you know, went on, not just from a factual standpoint of like this hit that, or, you know, this ship sunk, but from the people who like, you know, who experienced it.
Yeah.
And it's secondhand, but you've read those diary entries or those stories about, you know, those nonfiction, even though you're a fictional writer, a historical fictioner, you've read those memoirs. And, you know, I feel like it's a really responsible and powerful position that you're in, because if you don't communicate those feelings that war might bring, or, you know, bigger points in history might bring, then we're not going to take that seriously. We're not going to take those times and really give them the respect they deserve, because we don't know. And we're doomed to repeat it. Right. But I was going to say, because we don't know, like, we don't know what all really happened. And so to paint those stories from your own interest in history and being a historian, plus your love for writing, plus your love for other books and reading, and taking all that and combining it into a passion and a career, that's a really responsible thing to do, because I mean, it communicates that to younger audiences, to new people who haven't experienced that stuff firsthand. So that's a victory story. And I feel like, you know, you won already, because it's you that is both interested in it and it's you that's creating it. So you get to be creative. And so,
going off of that, no, you're right. I know I've sold like maybe a good chunk of copy. I honestly have not kept track. I intend to kind of keep track with the newest one once I actually publish it, and I want to see if I can.
Yeah.
But the reviews themselves, it's just going, because like there's days when I'm like, I'm bored. I'm gonna go back and actually read the reviews.
Okay.
And like just the impact that it had on people, where it's like, he's actually a good writer. He actually makes these people believable.
Yeah.
It's impressive to actually bring something that happened 80 years ago to today.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing because it's impacting people today who weren't even alive, probably not even like, you know, thought about, like, you know, and now they're reading your work about something that happened, affected everyone, alive or not, you know, like, I mean, we all talk about it. We learn about it.
We watch movies about
exactly.
it. Like, movies are still being made about it.
Yeah. And like you said too, it's really important to have even even if you're just watching the movies and stuff, have an idea of what it took for that stuff to happen, because you don't want it to happen again. Yeah. So that's really cool. And I also want to add this. I know as a creative myself that finding the strength and courage to go back and read reviews, to go and keep up with, you know, the numbers and the analytics of things. Most creatives, I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone, but most creatives, that's not the first thing that they think about. Like, you're trying to get something out of you when you create something, and you know, want to do that first and foremost, to the best of your ability, create. So a lot of times we put that, I'm sure I know everyone cares about what people think. Like it's something that in human nature, we all are looking, whether we want to admit it or not, we're looking for
attention,
approval, attention, acceptance, I think is a big part. That's really where I was going, is we all want to be accepted. So when we put our heart out there and it's something that we really care about, it does matter that people like it and that it's received well. But I was getting to too, it's not usually the first thing that we're like, okay, like how many copies, how many reviews, how much money, how many numbers, like that. I go to that number thing.
I feel like everybody goes to the number thing because it's just the one thing they're like, it's either the money or how many.
But that doesn't matter.
No,
it doesn't. Care. That's not the victory that that's what I was getting to, is like, I know that you were saying with this next one, you want to, look at that a little bit more. And I think that shows in your own writing career from an outside perspective, like just maturity, because it's like, okay, I've done this. It's hard to even produce or publish something.
Yeah.
So to have those, couple, 2, 4 out of the way, now you're looking at this from a new point of view, which is I'm going to make another one. And this time I'm going to maybe look at some other things and keep this in the back of my head of like, trying to check up on things. I do it with my podcast. I'm like, I mean, for real, I've really just now started being like, all right, let's look at the analytics. Which topics do people enjoy? And it's like, but for the first, 60 few episodes, it's like, I'm doing this because I've got something inside of me that needs to be out.
Exactly.
And I think as a writer,
honestly, that's how you should look at everything. But here's the thing, like if you look at everything as that stupid dopamine chase, I'm guilty of it. I will say, like every time I post a stupid reel on Instagram, I'm like, oh, I got to see who liked it.
Yeah.
And it's like just one person. It's like, so I'm trying to get to that aspect of not even paying attention to that and like walking away and letting it grow and come back to it and go, oh, 10 people liked it.
Fantastic. Your people are going to find you.
Oh, eventually. Yes,
they will find
always.
you. And
it goes back to like, not just Instagram, not just everything. Like I will brag a little where like looking at the reviews, I have not seen anything under 4 stars.
That's awesome.
The only reason why 4 stars showed up is because the second book that was published, Where I've Been, which I take much pride in it because I really consider that the first one.
Okay.
Because it was like professionally edited, everything. I did it myself. The only reason why it was a 4 stars is because it reminded the reader of All Is Quiet on the Western Front. And I'm like, but it's not.
Yeah.
Because Where I've Been is literally the World War I aspect of a cavalry fighter. He literally has his horse taken from him. And then he's like, you know what? I'm going with the horse. You can't stop me.
Oh.
And for the first half of the book, you follow him. And then I think I've actually shown it to you, the silver award, the little silver disc that I have framed. Yeah, that actually inspired the second half of the book because he gets injured, sent home, gets the war badge.
Oh. And where did you get that?
eBay.
Okay.
Most of my World War I and II collection comes from eBay.
I love that. So you're a collector too. We hadn't even talked about that. I mean,
actually we haven't. I haven't collected in a while. I think I stopped after my trip to Normandy. Got the sands from Normandy and Dunkirk, and then I just didn't want to put money into it anymore.
Well, I love that you've, again, taken your interest with history and made something out of that interest. So it's not just a passion that you have, but you're also sharing it with other people.
Trying to.
Yeah. Well, like we mentioned, the people are going to find you. You just have to keep showing up. Yeah. And when you're working on different projects, whether it's a PhD, a book, making a new website, I don't know, whatever creatively you're working on, not you, but just as a creative. Yeah. You're going to be introduced to new audiences, new people, new influences and things like that. So I think once it sounds like you've got a great handle on it, once you figure out what it is you like there's going to be people there. It's not going to be the whole world, like, you know, but
no, you find your people,
but you find your people. Right. And when you do find those people, then it's so much easier to start making content, whether it's be a book.
When it comes to that is always right for you.
Right for you.
Like,
yes.
Do it for you, and the people will follow afterwards.
And I'm going to add to that because I've loved this lately is once you find your people, you're like, oh, they're similar to me and I can keep making 100%, this 100%. For them with them in mind. Yeah. So I like that you're working on your PhD. Yep. you've got another book in the works. Well, I have a question. Okay, so this just came to me. So if we have any aspiring authors who are listening, maybe they're writing and stuff, and they have ideas come to them all the time, how do you decipher what you should actually put time and energy into making a reality, writing? And how do you say, okay, that character is awesome, but not this time, and put that character kind of back
and
in the
shelve them?
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that feeling so much.
Is there any advice you would give to people who are flooded with ideas and they maybe need some help to weed out the good ones, maybe put some on the back burner until they kind of develop more? How do you pick which ones you're going to write first?
So it comes down to flushing out an idea. I used to be a pantser writer.
What does that mean?
Basically, someone who just writes and doesn't plot anything.
Okay.
And I still am because I don't like outlines. I never liked outlines. So I don't like outlines.
Okay.
When I have to do them for homework projects, they're great because at first I find them completely useless. And then actually when I'm writing the paper, I'm like, oh, this is what I want to do. And I can write this faster because I'm actually following this.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to your question, it's find two things. The first, generally plot out the whole thing. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be front to end.
Okay.
It has to be, have a beginning, have a middle, have an end. Pinpoint that. And then if you're a pants writer, just write as you go, write your feeling, whatever. But at least have an idea. The second thing I'm going to say is when it comes down to taking priority, whatever is coming out the most, whether it be a character that doesn't fit the plot, adapt them a little. If you're attached to this character, adapt them to fit the plot.
Okay.
If you have too many ideas like I do,
that's where I feel like it's most of
the
us
worst.
Fit.
It's the worst because you sit there, you go hung on project A, and then you get 3 chapters in, and then a new idea blossoms, and you're like, okay, if it's a strong enough idea to take over, let it take over.
Okay.
If it's a weak idea, adapt it to fit what you're working with.
Ooh, okay.
That is what I always do. If it's an idea that can actually fit into the plot that I'm working with, change it and fit it in. It becomes a secondary story.
Can you give me an example of how you've done that in some of your writing?
So recently, an abandoned project that I hope to return to was supposed to be a modern day Rumpelstiltskin.
Okay. I love the story of Rumpelstiltskin.
Not many people do.
I do.
And I don't know why.
Because it's not really a good movie or good
but it's
story,
a good message.
For mothers.
It's a good message.
But yeah, no,
don't
I
trust random strangers who will promise you the fortune.
I mean, it worked out with me and you. Right? You were a random stranger and I was a random stranger, and look at us. 5 years later, we're still friends. But no, I get what you mean.
But
so that's a cool idea.
So that idea blossomed, and I was like, okay. And then I had another fantasy idea that popped up. And it had to do with teleportation and all that stuff.
Ooh.
So the whole plot of this modern day Rumpelstiltskin that I still want to write is he has lived 6 centuries, maybe more.
Okay.
He's everything that happened in the original Grimm's tale is true except the part where he dies. Currently he has 6 children because he's made deals in the modern time.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. And his oldest knows. So he's trying to become the new Rumpelstiltskin.
Okay. And that's interesting.
He has this really, because we're in that era of everybody wants to be their own entrepreneur, all that stuff. So he has his own business where he makes millionaires by getting rid of their debt, all that stuff. And he finds people who have major debts and all that stuff and makes them go from negatives to millionaires.
Yeah. Okay.
And so he finds this chick, falls in love with her by accident, and he takes her on a date. And in the middle of it, after the 2 days he spent with her, she's gone from 0 to $500,000. And they're on this date, and she goes, "You know who you remind me of? Rumpelstiltskin."
Oh my goodness.
And
okay.
he goes, "What?" Excuse me, and goes to the bathroom and then teleports to Germany because anytime you say his name, he goes back to his origin.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So the whole teleportation idea that I took from whatever that plot was supposed to be, I twisted it into that book.
Okay, I like that. And now it's two ideas that have been merged into one.
Yeah.
I really do like that. That's
So
good advice.
That is my always go-to. It's if you have a good idea and it can't be by itself, do it. If you have a good idea, but it can mix into what you're doing, mix it.
Adapt the ideas because there's a reason they're coming to you. Like,
and they don't stop.
And they don't stop. You're right. Well, that is really good advice. And I think it inspires me to go and take a look at my ideas list and
got a good couple ones. Too.
Yeah,
We've
reevaluate.
a couple of them tonight.
Yeah, we have. Well, I know that you are currently working on a couple things that we've talked about, but we haven't really talked about things that have influenced you. Do you have any songs, books, authors, movies that you are really inspired by and influenced by, whether it be in your writing style or with your love for history, that maybe you think someone listening hasn't seen or heard of yet?
I found an artist on Instagram.
Okay.
That is I've never heard anything like this. He's
music artist.
Music.
Okay.
Elias Alexander.
Okay. And why do you like him?
He's taken like Scottish fiddle and bagpipes and put it into pop music.
Oh,
right?
Right? What? I'm going to have to hear it. But don't play it now because I don't want to get copyright.
Yeah,
but
right.
What's his name again?
Elias Alexander.
Okay. And he's on Instagram. Okay.
And he's awesome. And I think Tuesday after work, he doesn't have a lot of stuff on YouTube, but I put his YouTube on and just started writing.
Huh.
And he is good.
Is it lyrics? Is it just the music?
There's a couple lyrics, but it's just mostly the music.
So you listen to it while you're writing?
I'll listen to music while I write. Usually it's probably Vera Lynn, anything 1940s, because it just gets you in the setting.
We hadn't even talked about your love for the 1940s.
No, we haven't.
I'm glad you brought it up because I did want to mention that. We talked about how much you love history and you have a love for a lot of different things, whether it's writing. I know we've talked a lot about.
You caught me on a day where I'm not dressed like it.
Yeah. When I first met Dan, he only wore 1940s nice, very
button downs,
dapper.
Ties.
Is that right to say dapper?
Yeah.
Very dapper.
Waistcoats.
And you have a very nice wardrobe. Takes, again, your love for something and incorporates it into your real life in a way that is not seen very often anymore, but can be appreciated when you ask why.
Yeah.
So what is it that you love about when you put on these clothes? Is it that tell me, what is it that you feel?
Confidence booster.
It's a confidence booster. Okay. So elaborate a little bit.
So when you change your aspect of anything, like whether it's your clothing, your hair, whatever, it's usually to make yourself feel better.
Yeah.
And now it's even harder to get back into it because you're comfortable.
I can see that. I've had, even this year, had to really start, because I work from home. I have a home office.
Same.
Really start putting in the effort to be okay, I am going to an office today. I need to put on what I would wear if I was going to an outside of the house office.
Yeah.
Because if you there's nothing wrong with wearing your sweats at your home office. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do know you do that enough. Better. And you start to get comfortable, like you said. And so I love that you wear things that not only embody those characters from your stories or those, people that you hear about and read about from the memoirs or from history movies and things like that. But you also receive that confidence boost of this is nice. And I stand out in a good way.
People compliment.
I want to know, where do you get those clothes? Do you see them? Do you order them from a special site? Do you thrift?
Most of my button downs came from my dad.
Okay.
So he's president of a custom clothing. And so I order my shirts from him because family discounts. Little
no shame plug there.
No shame plug there.
Yeah.
And then the waistcoats are genuine vintage. So all of them, I only have two. One's from 1945. The other I think is from 1938.
You're the perfect person to have them. I know.
I want more.
They found the right home. I love that.
The black one is easier to wear because the other one's tweed and you can't wear that in summer.
Do you have a soldier?
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
I've got actually a couple. I think the army shirt that I've worn a couple times is 1942.
Wow.
bomber jacket of the 7th is 1945, 44.
Oh, that's amazing.
And then wow, you got me thinking.
Well, I was going to say these people, like, I feel like this adds.
Some of them actually have names in them. And I want to look into them further. But
I love that. Like, that is so interesting. And that makes me so curious. And
that's that silver badge from that I was talking about earlier has an actual ID number of I went down that rabbit hole so deep that I actually found his name, his wife, his children,
what?
How he got the award, and I found everything and I framed it all around.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. Are you inspired by those items to write any of your characters?
I'd say a little bit.
Okay.
More so those items are just to remember them.
Yeah.
Like, for example, my prized possession is a 1938 to 40 pilot logbook. These are the hardest things to find.
Real pilot logbook. Oh my goodness.
Pilot logbooks are really hard to obtain because they're really expensive. And this is Charles Albert Leslie Bevins. He's a sergeant of the Royal Air Force. Wow. And I have his picture. I have 2 of his medals. I have his RAF cap badge and his pilot logbook and his information on where he's buried. Because that actually sparked my capstone project for my master's.
Oh, okay.
I put him in there, and I'm also putting him in my dissertation. I think he's in chapter 1, and he'll probably go further in depth into chapter 3 or 4.
Wow.
Because it's going to be about the actual planes that he flew.
The actual ones in the logbook.
So yeah, so the Tiger Moth, and I think he flew 2 planes. One was just for training, the other was a bomber, and then he died April 22nd, 1940. But it's actually logged at the end of the book where it says killed in action April 22nd.
It really does circle all the way back around.
It really does.
To the beginning of our conversation, which was the responsibility that you have when you have God gifted you with a passion for history. Yes. And also paired it with a passion and talent for writing. And the way that you have taken your love for both of those things and have paired it with real things, real people, and the things they actually did, like the logbook. And now you're keeping what they did alive. Like you're respecting it, not only with, your interests and stuff, but you're keeping their stories alive. You're appreciating it the way that I feel like it takes a very special person to be able to appreciate, because it's like you're putting yourself in that story. Yeah. And you weren't even alive when it happened, but you still are connected to it. And that to me is so beautiful. And it's just this big picture of life that I feel like shows, how God uses us to make the world a better place, to continue to share stories like his, and then to also give you a new edge because you're writing these incredible fiction books, but they're based on real people and real things. And so, that's just a very interesting victory story. And you have your own victory. There's no war or battle, but there are, here when you're
internally, maybe.
Yeah. I was going to say, as a writer, probably internally.
There's a lot of arguments you have with your characters.
Yeah, I can only imagine. But you do a really good job, and I'm so proud of you as a friend. And so that's why I wanted to have you on, is because I feel like it's just a completely new perspective of being a creator that I haven't talked to on the show before. And there's so many people out there that do what you do. Just in my world, you're the first. And so I appreciate you for doing what you do, for loving it the way that you love it, and being the creative that you are.
It's been a pleasure. This has been great.
Well, my fellow artists who tune in and creatives that tune in, I know they're going to appreciate that you're doing what you do. And if you want to go and follow him so you can see what he does next, Dan, where can we find you online?
Yeah, really only one place, which is going to be Instagram, dans.book.corner.
That's cool. And I love that you share your book recommends and share more about the writing process over on your Instagram.
Yep.
So if you're listening now and you want to hear more about Dan's book interests and recommends, hear more about his upcoming projects, keep up with him as he finishes his PhD, then you can find him at Dan's.book corner. Thank you, Dan, for coming on. Is there anything else you want to say while you got a mic in your hand?
Don't give up on yourselves.
Awesome.
I mean, this world does it constantly. Stop doing it.
Believe in yourself, advocate for yourself. Don't give up on yourself.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much, Dan, for coming on. And we will talk to you again soon, hopefully.
Oh my gosh, yes.
All right. Until next time, Tori B. Glass here with Dan Heiser, author, writer, creator, artist, awesome friend. Until next time. All right. Bye. Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of the Contagious Victories podcast. If the show inspired you to share your own victory story, I'm here to tell you the world deserves to hear it. Submit it to me online at toriblackman.com. Review and subscribe if that feels right. Telling a friend about the show helps Contagious Victories to grow. Plus, we all appreciate a little sunshine. I'm Tori B. Thanks for listening.